And we're back. I'm Hillary Bailey, and you're watching the Senior Care Conversation on Now Media Television. Want more of what you're watching? Stay connected to the Senior Care Conversation and every Now Media TV favorite, live or on demand, anytime you like. Download the free Now Media TV app on Roku or iOS and unlock nonstop bilingual programming in English and Spanish. On the move, you can also catch the podcast version right from our website at www.nowmedia.tv. From business and news to lifestyle, culture, and beyond, Now Media TV is streaming around the clock, ready whenever you are. All right, guys, we are back with DNA, who's the boss. And in this segment, we're going to focus on something rarely talked about, caregiver burnout. I talk about it a lot, but I don't think people in their families talk about it a lot. So behind every senior receiving care is someone carrying a heavy heart, often feeling legally powerless to make decisions. So let's talk about how the law can lighten the load for them. So we are going to get into legal documents, which is always something wonderful to learn about, and the CNA is going to help us and debunk all of this. So let's talk about what legal documents make caregiving easier and less stressful.
There are so many. I mean, how much time do we have? Do we have a lot of time?
Talk about them all, girl.
Okay, so the first ones that come to my head automatically is a durable power of attorney. Okay, so what that is, it's a document where you appoint somebody known as an agent who's able to basically make decisions regarding your care for legal and your financial matters. So that can be like bank accounts, it could be a house, it could be paying your mortgage, it could literally be anything that you own an asset for, investment accounts. That is a durable power of attorney here in Texas. You can make it effective upon your incapacitation or effective immediately upon signing. Person has a choice, which is great. A medical power of attorney is super important. It's the same idea as a durable power of attorney. The only difference is it's for your medical decisions, right? So somebody who is appointed as your agent can make medical decisions on your behalf. It's great, right? Those two right there are the most important documents when it comes to caregiving. Reason being is if people do not have those documents in place, it makes it extremely difficult for a caregiver to do anything to help them, right? If you don't have a durable power of attorney or a medical power of attorney, this is when the guardianship courts has to get involved because there's nobody who has legal authority to make any decisions regarding the care of the proposed ward, which is the person that needs to be under a guardianship. So those two documents are super important. I mean, obviously, having a will is important for when somebody passes away. It's not as important for caregiving matters, but those two documents are really powerful. Some people can even incorporate, kind of incapacitation, wishes, desires, wants in their trust. Having a revocable living trust. Sometimes people will do both, just in case they either don't do the documents for what I just mentioned, or they're like, you know what, I just want to have extra added protection. Let me include a little bit of incapacitation language in my trust. So those are the main sources that people should have. And then I also will mention there's something called a directive to physicians. This is not as important, but I think it's really powerful because it allows somebody to dictate how they want their end of life care so that way their family members are not burdened with that choice. It's a huge, huge, powerful document that is really taking away the burden from your family members because it's already going to be hard enough if they're going to have to be in a situation where they say, okay, do I leave someone on life support or not? Do I want my family member to stay with me even if they're in a type of state or not? So I think it's a very, very powerful document that a lot of people should be encouraged to do. It's a hard document to make a decision on, but it's a powerful document for your loved ones in the long run.
So especially like the durable medical power of attorney, excuse me. Uh, how can they protect caregivers from burnout?
Well, as far as burnout goes, I mean, I will say this, when the family is in conflict, the caregiver is the one who's dealing with all the consequences of what that looks like, right? So let me back up just a little bit
Okay.
because when somebody has a durable power of attorney or medical power of attorney, that person is able to make decisions in actually hiring the caregiver. So that's what I want to make sure I preface
Okay.
that really quickly. But as far as the caregiver goes, um, avoiding burnout is people having those estate plans in place will help the caregiver be able to do their job to be able to take care of the family member, right? Because if there's conflict amongst the family on who is even able to make those decisions, the caregiver is going to feel like they're getting the run around on top of trying to care for the person and they don't know who they're supposed to listen to. So it creates a huge, huge problem for the caregiver because the idea is we want to make sure that they are good because if they're good, they're going to take care of your family members, right? They're going to take care of your loved ones. So that's a really big way to ensure that caregivers don't have burnout. Having the documentation in place so they know exactly who they need to be talking with is very, very, very important.
So
I
let me,
also, oh, go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, let me ask you this. So with a medical power of attorney, that's, they make a lot of, they have to make a lot of difficult decisions. And I think sometimes decision fatigue is a thing for them. So, well, I had the question, it was right here.
Well, that's okay. Well, let me tell you
It went
this
away.
while
We'll
you're
cut.
thinking about that.
We'll come back. Oh, are they able to have someone else on the document with them? So say like they're out of town or they're just like, you know what? I'm tired. I need to take 3 weeks off from, making decisions for mom. I want you to do it. Is that possible?
Yes, it is. And it's funny because we were both on the same wavelength. You couldn't remember the question, and I was just about to speak on it. So, you're allowed to have alternates, right? That's the power of estate planning. Having an alternate listed on all of your documents is super powerful because it allows someone else to step in your shoes in the event that you are unable to do it. I mean, I'm a huge person and proponent of like preparing for the unexpected because I have to be, right? Being an estate plan, probate, and guardianship attorney, I have to be thinking about the worst case scenario at all times. So I always have at least three people listed on every single one of my documents in the event that somebody passes, they're becoming incapacitated themselves, they're unable to serve in that moment. So then that way, caregivers have the opportunity to help themselves in the event of burnout. I also will say it's important to make sure that there's a HIPAA authorization in all of your documents because it's hard to make a decision for your medical care if you can't have access to the records, right? So
Yeah.
that's very, very, very important. But another thing that caregivers can do, and this is like me being the counselor that I am, AKA this is the counselor slash lawyer,
Mhm.
therapy, secondary trauma is such a huge thing. And I'm speaking from a social worker perspective. I
Mhm.
didn't know what that meant until I lived it, right? So it's not legal related, but it is because if you're listed as an alternate or even an agent for anybody for their durable or their medical power of attorney, and you're suffering, you're going to have a hard time making those decisions because you're carrying the load of the person you're taking care of or whatever, or even if there's conflict amongst the family members. So make sure you go to therapy and try to help yourself through that or do something that makes you happy so you can still step in the shoes and help whoever you're taking care of.
That was actually my next question. I was going to ask you, putting on your social work hat, um, because we all know about, like you talked about, therapy and doing some self-care, me time. Are there other resources out in the community for the caregivers that are actually caring for their loved ones, or even the children who might have some decision fatigue going on that they can utilize?
I always say that kind of reaching out to your local community and finding resources amongst your local community, like that's the first step, right? And I didn't realize how big Facebook groups were out here until I
Yeah.
moved to Texas. I mean, reaching out to people in a Facebook group is a great way to do it. I mean, people like yourselves, Hillary, like you are fantastic. You are a great resource to be able to help other people. I think it's just knowing someone who knows someone, right? And looking up online and seeing if you can find anybody that has a group that you can speak with because support groups are such a big deal. I didn't have that when I was a social worker, and I wish I did because I think if I did, I would have stayed in a little bit longer. And so, when I went to therapy, I just discovered more support groups. And then, because the therapist is going to be having all the connections,
Right,
right? And
right, yeah.
connect you to the right person. So, I mean, I don't have any particular groups that I can say definitively you need to go here, but I will say that there are resources out there. You just have to look for them. And if you know someone, ask that person and see if they know someone else. And because this is a wide network, I will say that we're not confined to Texas, but there are networks and support groups for everybody out there. You just have to be able to find them.
Absolutely. So we got about 2.5 minutes left. So I kind of want to dive into, so not everyone can afford outside caregivers, right? So some of
Yep.
the kids, might have to care for their parents and they might also need to work. How can they legally protect their jobs and their finances if they have to step in and be the one?
Yeah, so this is a very deep question, right? And the reason being is that everybody's family dynamic looks different and everyone's job looks different, right? So you can try and see if you can get protection under the FMLA Act, the Family Medical Leave Act, so that way you can say, okay, well, I'm not going to lose my job. Unfortunately, it's unpaid, right? But at least it's an option for you to be able to help. State-specific laws might allow people to take some extra time off. Sometimes an employer-specific your employer itself will be able to help you in terms of saying, okay, well, you need to be there for your parent. Having a power of attorney, a lot of times you can actually, the principal of the durable power of attorney, they can actually pay from their own estate their children or their family members to be able to help them. So that's something that they could do and include it in their document. So that way there's at least a little bit of compensation. I mean, some people will even go as far as creating a caregiver compensation agreement, right? They're going to say, hey, listen, because you're taking care of me, I'm going to be able to do this. Now, the caveat of that is if the person who is trying to engage in that agreement is actually incapacitated, they can't then create an agreement. But the person who is an agent of the principal who's the subject of needing care, they can engage in a compensation agreement to be able to help. But there's resources out there, but you just have to ask your employer. I think that's the biggest thing because it's sad. People really want to be there for their family members and they feel restricted because they don't feel like they can be there full time because of the compensation piece. But there are ways for people to get paid. It's just a matter of making sure that you can keep your job. And I always just tell people like beg.
Yeah, please tell me.
Yeah.
So, how can people get a hold of you? Please tell us if they need your services.
Oh, yes. So they can call my office at 281-895-1721. I work, High-Easton Law Firm. Would be very happy. They can visit my website at higheastonlaw.com. I have a form that they can set up directly using a calendar link, and they can email me. And my name is so unique. You can find me on any social media platform. High-Easton Law, DNA High-Easton. You can find me anywhere and everywhere.
All right, guys, we are going to be right back and we're going to talk about what happens when couples don't agree on planning. We'll be right back with more insight, expert advice, and stories that matter to every generation.